In this episode of Vetiver Vibes, I had the great opportunity to chat with Jane Lawson, all about dowsing. In this interview, Jane shares several stories of how she used the pendulum to support past clients. One of these stories does discuss past sexual abuse. We wanted to let you know this beforehand, as we understand this can be triggering for some people. Jane has several stories that she shares with us, and it really allows us to see how the pendulum and the essential oils really work together to support people through so many life events. We hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to the Vetiver Vibes podcast. We're your hosts, Nikki, Rachel, and Rhonda, certified clinical aromatherapists coming to you from Ontario, Canada, and on the internet everywhere.
This episode is brought to you by Essentria, a leading online school for aromatherapy. Essentria is your go-to source for clinical aromatherapy certification programs that are recognized by NAHA and the Canadian Federation of Aromatherapists.
If you want to learn more about Aroma Massage course, check out their website, www.schoolofessentria.com. We're excited that you've given your time to be here with us, knowing you'll get the best essential oil scoop. Hi, welcome to this week's episode of Vetiver Vibes. Nikki here, and I'm very excited to have Jane Lawson joining us. Jane started her career by becoming trained in clinical aromatherapy, manual lymphatic drainage massage, reflexology. She also makes products. She then went to expand her knowledge and learn about metamorphosis therapy and polarity healing, and was then introduced to dowsing, became a Reiki master, and so much more. She's the author of the book, The Natural Approach to Essential Oils. Jane has been in the field for over 25 years, gives back to the community, and is a wealth of knowledge when it comes to so many things, including radiesthesia, or commonly known as dowsing for essential oils. Welcome to the podcast, Jane.
Hello, and lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
So we always like to start off with an easy/hard question with our guests as to what is your favorite oil? Because I know this can be a very encompassing question, and it can be right now because we recognize that this can change in a matter of days, hours, or minutes even.
Yes. So it is a tough one. If somebody said to me, if you could only take one essential to a desert island, what would you take?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's about the only way I could sort of narrow it down. At the moment, I'd probably have to pick out of the 5 or 6 that I'd like to take for various reasons. I'd probably have to narrow it down at the moment to marjoram.
Okay, nice. Is there a specific reason, or are you just being called to that one right now?
It's because it is such a fabulous all-round oil. And I think when a lot of people first start studying, there's marjoram, it's a herb, and a lot of people go, oh, herbs are so boring, but actually they're not. And when you look at marjoram, I mean, she just does so much, so useful for so many different things. Might not be the best oil, say, for chest congestion, for argument's sake, seems I've got a bit of a head cold going on. But certainly if you start using it right at early stages, you're standing a fighting chance with it,
Absolutely. Oh, I love it.
I'd go with marjoram just now.
Awesome. Amazing. So one thing we also like to know is, how did you get into aromatherapy? Okay. Everyone's story is so unique, and it's always nice to see where that story began.
Yeah. So for me, decades as it is now ago, I used to work for a company called Mitsubishi Motors, and I was traveling all over the UK and Northern Ireland and stuff. And even way back, so I'm going back like 40 years. So even in those days, some of the hotels we had to stay in still had what we call spas. Mm-hmm. So being on the road a lot and what have you, if there was a spa and they happened to have a massage therapist in there, I'd give myself a treat and book myself in for a massage. And I always found I like the smelly massage, because 40 years ago, aromatherapy's around, but not a lot of people had heard about it. So in that, I would say during that 10 years, a bit shorter than that, I started buying a few essential oils, buying some books and looking into it. And of course, one of the first oils was patchouli, like it is with a lot of aromatherapists from that era for some reason. And there was one day I was back at home, and I was flicking through the local newspaper, and there was a course being run that weekend. So you might be too young to remember this, but the film, the musical Oliver.
Yes. Yep.
So the young lad that was in that as Oliver, Mark, whatever his surname is, I've forgotten now. But he, after he did that film, he actually became a osteopath chiropractor, one or the other, and into Chinese medicine and all the rest of it. And he has a centre here in Cheltenham. And that's what he does. I mean, he did a few films after Oliver, obviously, you know, when he was in his 20s and stuff, but that's what he did. And it was in that, anyway, it was there. So I went that weekend, and it was basically to learn just very simple back and neck massage, if you like. But the big thing with it was essential oils. So I went along to that, and that just bit the bug. You know, that was it. I had no idea where to learn it or what to do with it until I eventually moved up to Scotland. And I'd had my first daughter, and I managed to do my aromatherapy level before my second daughter came along, because there's only 14 months between them. So it put a hold for a few months on me going on to doing the clinical, but then I did my clinical. Nice. So I've been a full-blown clinical aromatherapist for about just over 30 years now.
Oh, wow.
I'm teaching for about 26, 27, maybe even 28 now. I lose count now. But yeah, that's how I got into it, basically, and never ever looked back. Because to me, it was something I could tie in around my children as they were growing up, and everything as well, you know.
Yeah, no, and it's so true, because that's how, for myself too, it was with the kids and tying it in, and my kids are still young, so it's just like it's part of our everyday life, especially with all the little fun things that kids get into and bring home and all of that jazz.
It's easier than, you know, than trying to tell your employer that you need time off. You might only have one or two clients, or just a client even. That happens to be at an awkward time when you know the child is at home sick or something, and you can say, do you mind if I move it because, you know, such and such is off sick? And clients normally, they're fine with that. Real life happens, you know. So yeah, it ties in beautifully with that. Thankfully, of course, being an aromatherapist, kids who hardly ever sick didn't have to do it.
Yep. No, I agree. So how did you get into dowsing specifically then?
Okay. So after doing my clinical, I think you covered some bits there. The one thing I don't actually do is I don't make product per se.
Okay.
I'm very much more on the therapist. In other words, everybody is unique, and you will get your own. I have them. I have set blends, obviously, that are general Joe blogs. Certainly with the COVID, put together a safe blend, you know, as a prophylactic, as well as if you happen to catch it. Which I shared them with my students, so that we could actually, certainly for the frontline workers, we were sending them out completely free of charge to help support them. But we were also putting in specific hand sanitizer, where we were just using floral water or hydrosols instead of all this horrible chemical rubbish everybody's been rubbing into their hands, which is also, anyway, that's another story.
Totally
anyway,
agree.
my teacher had contacted me, and very much still in my clinical head. And clinical back in those days in the UK meant that you could work alongside and in the National Health Service, the NHS here. So I was working alongside my local doctor's surgery, or clinic, as you call it, perhaps over there. So they took me into, because the whole practice, every single doctor had to have a complementary therapy under their belt. They were very, very forward looking up there. The head of practice was an acupuncturist. My personal male doctor was a homeopath. My lady doctor, if I needed lady stuff doing, although I gave up on her really, I just carried on with Graham really. She did hypnotherapy. So they had nobody that would cover the aromatherapy side. So they asked if I would get involved with them with that, you know, and they would refer
Nice.
patients to me. And I said, yeah, absolutely, not a problem. Let's crack on with this. So my teacher had phoned me up and said to me that she had this lady called Janet Morgan. I tried to trace her, but she must be by now gone, because she was quite an old elderly lady when, or an older woman certainly, when I was training with her. And asked if I wanted to go along, but Janet was coming up. She was, at the time, she was president of one of the crystal associations in the UK. And I'm going, I like crystals. You look around my room and see them everywhere, but not into it as a practice. You know, clinical head on here, you know, dowsing, dowsing for up. No, not interested in that. But this just shows you how weird it was. But I still went off to see a clairvoyant. Right?
Okay.
Which is still woo-woo.
Yeah.
And this lady, she was well known. She lived in Aberdeen, tiny, tiny little Scottish lady. But she used to do what they call touch and tells for the Manchester. There's another city, Manchester Police. And they had then somebody in Manchester that the Grampian Police would send evidence down to. So in other words, they would send evidence, you know, solid evidence, and they would just buy, I forget what it's called now. They hold the thing, don't they? And they tell you all about it, all around it. So yes, the police do use them. Okay.
That's awesome.
And she turned over quite a few wrong convictions, actually. Anyway, so this was the caliber of the woman I went to see, who I didn't really know did all that either. So I went to see her. Anyway, she's pacing up and down. She's rubbing her hands together. Yes, I'll tell her. Shush, tell her. I'll tell her in a minute. Yes, okay. I was thinking, oh my God, what have I let myself in for here, you know? So she turned around to me straight away and she went, what are all those tiny little bottles behind you? Stupid me turned around and had a look.
Well, you would assume she's actually talking about physically behind you.
Little bottle. Yes, she said. And she's doing this with her finger, you know, tiny little bottles, hundreds of them, hundreds and hundreds of little bottles. And I went, oh, I think I know what that is. I said, I'm an aromatherapist. What's that? She said, she had no idea what it was. All right. Anyway, she then turned around and she said, well, you're supposed to be on another course. Why are you not going? And she said, and it's working with pebbles, as she called stones.
Okay.
Right?
Interesting.
And I thought, well, it's not about pebbles. It's about dowsing, but I'm sure crystals will come into it. So the long and the short, got from appointment, got in front of my teacher, and I said, well, you better book me in on it. I'll come down to Glasgow and do it for the weekend. Because basically this clairvoyant told me off.
I love that. Oh, I so love that.
Totally out of balance can you get? No, I'm not going to learn about dowsing, but I'm going to go up and see this clairvoyant. You know, this clairvoyant says you're supposed to be on a course. I mean, she didn't know me from Adam anymore. It was the first time I'd ever met this woman, you know?
Yeah.
She'd been recommended to me. And I thought,
oh, I love it.
The universe is conspiring against me. Off I go.
Yep.
Spent that weekend learning with Janet and a few of the other clinical aromatherapists there. And she was actually president at the time of the radiesthesia, or dowsing as we commonly know it, here in the UK. So she was the top dog.
Nice.
I've been very, very lucky. I did all my training in Scotland and I had top dogs for teachers.
That's amazing.
You know, really, really top dogs. And of course, what I saw that weekend, if I hadn't seen this stuff going on with my own eyes, I'd never, ever, ever in a million years believed it. You know, so back I came and, oh, here he is. I know you can see the viewers. Oh, so his teach.
Some will be able to.
My dowser.
Yes.
Long lost his bead off the end. I call him Teach because he's taught me all these years. And when I do teach other students, if their dowsers don't happen to cooperate, then I'll say, have a go with Teach, because he loves teaching.
Oh, I like it. And I know you're very strong in naming your dowsers.
Dowser, yes.
Yes. And
I always say, have a conversation with your dowser, give them a name.
I know. And because I met you a while ago when you did a presentation for one of the associations. And so since then I've actually gotten a new one. Because I used to douse quite often, and then it kind of fell to the wayside. And then you
Uh-huh.
sparked my love for it again, and I've been using it nonstop again. And I was actually waiting for a store to open, and there was a store across that was open, and they had all kinds of crystals and dousers and everything. So I got this one here, and I've just been calling it Pendy because I'm
Pendy.
not good with
Oh,
names.
that's sweet.
So ever since I got it, I've just been calling him Pendy.
And I'm
And
watching you holding it there, and you're holding it correctly as well, because funnily enough, so many people don't hold their dowsers correctly. Or
and
the
that's one thing I
pentacles.
learned from you was because I would just hold it between my index finger and my thumb, and I would just go. I didn't wrap it around my first two fingers like you said. I never wrapped my fingers with it. I just held it at the tip, and so it would be super long. And usually, actually, all my other ones previously were crystals, and a lot of them, the chain would break or different things, or they'd get lost. And my kids, because the crystals, they go into my crystal jar, and then my kids take them and drop them. So a lot of them have the tip broken off, actually. But or then
If you
just
use
put.
one like that, that's on a chain, as in almost a necklace chain.
Yeah, this is actually an old necklace.
So what you need to do, if you're going to use it as a pendulum, where the latch is that closes in, you
Yeah.
need to undo the chain and use that latch to attach it to the finial at the top of you, because otherwise you've got a double helix going on.
And that's one thing I was never sure about, if it had to be a single chain up or
It
not.
needs to be
So that's
single.
good to
It
know.
needs to be single. Yeah.
Awesome.
Some people
That's
will
good to
use
know.
the necklaces from around the necks.
Yeah.
But what they should be doing is using the little clasp thing to
Yeah.
attach to whatever the weight is at the end, if
Okay.
you like. Because otherwise you end up with this double helix and you can
Okay.
get the wrong reading.
Well, that's good to know. No, I've been loving my new one though, and it's the only one that I've named. It's metal, and I love my crystal ones, but I find there's just, I don't know if it's the difference with metal
Well,
versus
it's funny because
crystals.
after I must have had to teach for not quite 2 years, I think. And of course, because of having done that whole weekend, I then started appreciating crystals as well. I'm not a crystal healer, I hasten to add. All right. I don't do well. It comes into my treatments, but not in a conventional crystal healing sense, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So I decided, oh, I want to get a crystal dowser now, which I have got. I always carry it with me in my handbag. And it's a quartz point. It's about yay big. It's quite a chunky one, but it's a phantom quartz. And I thought, oh, get this one working with the oils now. So I could douse myself up and went, right, pick out the oils. And it just stayed dead still. It would not budge. And funnily
Really?
enough, it was one of my clients who was very much into crystals as well, lady called Wendy. And I was showing her one. I said, watch this. It's magical. I said, it's just not working. It does not want to play with essential oils, right? And of course, it was so obvious, really. Wendy turned around to me and said, well, maybe, she said, it's because it's a rock and oils. Some oils come from wood. And I went, good point. So my crystal one I tend to use for energy work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's really interesting. Because I usually, well, I mean, I view my crystal one when I got it in the store, I literally was walking. It was my first one that I ever got, and I walked by, and it literally just followed me.
Yeah.
Through every time I walked by, and I was like, okay, that one's mine. Like
it's talking to you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was very clearly.
It's funny, you're not the first one that's told me that, when people have gone off to buy their dowsers, and there's a whole rack of them hanging up, and they're just looking at them, and then all of a sudden one of them will start moving as though it's coming towards, swinging forwards and backwards or something, as much as say, me, take me.
Yep. That was exactly, it was a huge
movement. Yeah.
Yep.
Really, really bizarre. It's amazing. So that's how
so
basically I got into it, and I've never ever looked back. Never ever looked back.
Oh, that's so great.
Learned so much more about essential oils doing that.
So I know you talked quick. So yours that you showed teach is made out of wood, and then we talked to
Old English oak.
Okay. And then we talked a little bit about the crystals, and then mine's made out of metal. So I know you said, so does it really make a difference what they're made out of? I know you just made a comment about the crystals more energy wise, but does it make a big difference what they're made out of?
I could say to you, like I said before, you could use a piece of chewing gum on the end of a piece of string. Yeah, because everything at the end of the day has got energy.
Yep.
And I think at the end of the day, she probably learned from the class with Robin as well. The biggest problem people have is actually trust.
Mm-hmm.
And once you get over that trust issue, that no, that can't be the right. Well, why on earth they pick that up? No, I'm not going with that because that can't be right. I mean, I'll give you an example. There was an elderly lady at the time that I was treating. Her name's Gladys, and she deserves a whole chapter to herself in my third book. But there we go. You probably get one because she taught me so much. 82-year-old, absolutely, you don't mess with this lady kind of woman, you know. She used to work in the government department down in London in her youth and all the rest of it. Anyway, she had emphysema quite badly. She'd seen the light twice, etc. And she was a referral from actually the head of practice because he was taking personal care of her as well. So we're dealing with big, you know, blood pressure issues and all the rest of it. So what I used to do, I used to see her every fortnight, and it was just for a simple, just to keep her chest healthy and, you know, clear and all the rest of it, particularly going into the winter months. Just back, neck and shoulder massages, but I'd also leave her, because in those days we didn't have what I call sniffy sticks, the nasal inhalers.
Yeah.
So I coined this phrase sniffy sticks for them, because that's what you're doing. It's a sniffy and it's a stick.
Yep.
Anyway, we had to in those days use little 10ml bottles and add some essentials to it and say, oh, put a drop on your tissue or put X amount in your diffuser, you know. So sniffy sticks are an absolute godsend.
Mm-hmm. Oh, they are.
So anyways, doused her up because in between she would have a little bottle of whatever the concoction was, if you like, to put just a drop on her pillow at night just to help with the respiratory situation, what have you. And this particular day, I remember two of yours, I can't remember what the third one was, lavender thyme and whatever the other one was, which I can't remember because it's irrelevant actually at this point. And I said, I can't give you that. And she said, why not? I said, because you've already got high blood pressure and we've just managed to get it all the way down here to the point where the doctor actually phoned me personally to say, just to let you know, I've got her medication for blood pressure. She's off her water tablets, but there again, I was doing lymphatic massage on her.
Nice.
And her blood pressure medication is down to the barest minimum I can give her, which is 5 milligram a day. Right. Amazing. He said, and that is all down to you. I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it. Whatever it is, just keep on doing it. And he said, but I can't not give her blood pressure medication. He said, because obviously, you know, we've had 2 incidents of, bring her back jobs. So I've got to keep that medication seen. And I said, no, I totally get it. That's fine. It's perfectly okay. Anyway, she turned around to me and she said, and I said, I can't give you that because of the thyme oil, you know, it could affect your blood pressure, blah, blah, blah. So she turned around to me and she said, but didn't you tell me at some point that lavender lowers blood pressure because I've had it before? And I went, yes. And she said, well then, she said, couldn't it be that there's something in the lavender that cancels out the effect of blood pressure problems with the thyme oil? And I went, maybe. Yeah.
That's
and
awesome.
she said, well, let's put it this way. I trust your Dowsing more than I trust you.
I love that she said that.
That was her actual words to me. I trust your Dowsing more than I trust you. And I thought, in my head, I'm going, well, you've got more faith in my Dowsing than even I have. You know.
That's amazing.
Turning points. Anyway, we did. And because we went with it, because she said, Jane, you know I'm very sensitive to my blood pressure. If it starts creeping up, I'll just stop using it and let you know. Okay? Deal. Let's go for it. And it was fine.
Yeah.
Blood pressure didn't alter a bit. Didn't happen with us. But you see, that's not just because of the chemistry of the oils.
No.
It's not just down to the chemistry of the oils, because by now, surely after 30 odd years, we'd know, oh, but if you put lavender and thyme oil together, it's going to countermand the effect of the thyme oil sending blood pressure up.
Yeah. No,
Yeah, there'd be
it's
something out. There's never ever been that anybody's looked into it from a chemistry point of view. But what the dowser does, it takes into consideration exactly what's going on with that person at that time.
yeah.
And therefore, her own endocrine system, what's going on with her hormones, what's going on neurological, everything at the
Yeah.
same time, you
And each
know?
person's so unique.
Yeah,
So they're
yeah,
looking specifically at that
yeah,
situation.
yeah, yeah. So that was a bit of a slap across the face with a wet kipper, as we say over here, by Gladys. You know, like put your big girl's knickers on, Jane, have a bit more faith in your dowser. And then you've probably heard the story then. The big turning point was my epilepsy client.
Yes. Yes, you did share that. That one was an
So would you
incredible
like me to share
story.
that with
Sure,
your
absolutely.
audience?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this young girl had come to see me, completely torticollis of the neck. She was turning with her shoulders. She just could not turn her head at all. Did the client assessment, obviously. And in the meantime, in my head, I'm going the usual stuff, you know, like rosemary, marjoram, obviously, you know, these oils whizzing around my head until we got to the point where she said, no, she's had epilepsy for the last however long it had been. And I went, oh, right, well, that cancels out XYZ oils straight away. So I've still got my clinical head on, and I thought, right, I'm going to do something a bit weird. I'm going to douse a few oils now, see what comes up. And just 2 oils came out, frankincense and rosewood. And that was it, just the 2. And I go, okay, got no issues with either of them, because my concern now was obviously the epilepsy.
Absolutely.
You know? So I thought, double checked it, because I did kinesiology as well. And I thought, okay, we'll double check with some kinesiology. And I threw in a couple of odd oils in there. And of course, the response was exactly what the dowser said. Yes to those 2, no to the other 2.
Yep.
And I went, okay, we'll go with these. I'm quite happy because they're perfectly safe. So away we went with this whole massage. And she gets off the massage couch. Now, in the meantime, I figured out the frankincense, because I started looking at it differently. We know it's anti-inflammatory, but it's not exactly your go-to for a stiff neck, really. It's not one of the first ones you'd think of. So I thought, oh, hang on a minute. Louise Hay, she always says if you've got a stiff neck or a tight neck, it's because you're not prepared to look at what's gone on in the past. And the only way to survive it is to have more of a, like you're wearing blinkers, you know, restrict your viewpoint like this, but you're not going to turn around and look at the past. And I went, oh,
I like it.
Something from the past, maybe, that's built up over time. Oh, because the other thing was she'd get hospitalized at least once a fortnight, if not once a week, because she'd get these cluster migraines with it as well, with the seizures. So she was in hospital very, very regularly, at least every week to 10 days for 2 to 3 nights until they had it all cleared up and balanced out. So she gets off the massage couch and she's got full range, absolute full range of movement. The whole thing's just like, wow.
Nice.
And I thought, well, I know I'm good, but not that good, you know? And I thought, because there's no way just the massage has got, normally you'd get, oh yeah, that's better. I can feel it loosening off. Good.
Yeah. It's
Here's
just
some more,
loosening the
take it home.
muscles, the inflammation
Yeah, do
coming
you know what I mean?
down.
Look, this was complete. I mean, she could have done that whole exorcist head on me. You know, it was so loose and threw me completely. So I re-doused her after the treatment, and the same 2 oils came out, and she was to have a bath in them twice a week until her next appointment in a fortnight's time, because you can go that far with your dowser as well. Yeah. And I said, okay, we'll have you back. And she said, yeah, that's fine. I want to get that. She said, because it was like, oh, I'm coming back to see this woman, because I mean, look at this. Wow.
Yeah, right? With results like that.
2 weeks later, she came back. But in the meantime, doing my due diligence, and of course, we didn't have the internet in those days. Not that I trust an awful lot of what you see on the internet when it comes to essential oils and stuff. But anyway, all we had was books. So it was out with all the books, digging through every book. And I mean, in those days, I used to have a couple of hundred of them, you know, some of them not even in print anymore. Nice. And just digging around. And finally, it was in one of Kurt Schnellbelt's books, where he happened to mention about rosewood, that there's some indication to show that it would help resolve epilepsy, where the underlying root cause was childhood trauma or sexual abuse. Now, having done my polarity healing with Douglas Bell, where I did all my advanced reflex, and I learned how to do reflexology on amputees, which was just an absolute privilege. I thought, okay, but how do we broach this? Because here in Britain, 30 odd years ago, you didn't talk about stuff like that. You just didn't, right?
It's a touchy
but I
subject
had a
to bring
very
up.
forward-thinking Reiki master teacher who was about 15, 20 years older than me at the time. And of course, being a typical Aussie lady, just roll up your sleeves and get on with it and just ask, oh, do that. Oh, just do it. So there's me, a bag of nerves for, a few days now before the treatment. She comes in for her treatment. And the first thing she says to me is, Jane, I said, how have you been? And she says, I've got to tell you, she said, I haven't been in hospital once since my treatment.
Amazing.
And I went, okay. And I said, all right. So before we start, I said, I need to go over these oils with you. So I sort of explained the frankincense before. And I said, but now I'm going to tell you about the rosewood. And I said, but I won't mince my words. I'm just going to come straight out with it. And if you want to just get up and walk out, no harm done. That's fine. I said, but it's a bit of a sensitive subject. And she said, fire away. So I said, okay, explain to her like I've done with you that I found this in this book and it said blah, blah, blah. And before I could even get to the sexual abuse bit, she started crying, not bawling her eyes, just leaking, right?
Yeah.
And with that, I'm going, oh, nail on head, over target. Now what do I do? Yeah. So she said, you've joined up so many dots for me now. It all makes sense. And I said, go on. And she said, 6 months before my epilepsy started, she'd been on a Louise Hay weekend. And by the Sunday afternoon, they were going to be doing a meditation, sort of regression-y type idea back into their childhood to try and resolve any kind of trauma from their childhood. She had no memory recollection until she got into this deep, deep meditation and it all came flooding back. It opened up a Pandora's box. So, of course, she goes home to her mother, tells her, did this actually happen? Or is this just she said, because it feels real to me, because she could still see this man's face. Yeah. And she described this man, and the mum sat there bawling her eyes out because she completely and utterly described this chap who was a family friend who was a little girl she used to call uncle whatever. It got caught basically. He suddenly disappeared, and in those days we won't ask how he disappeared, but he just disappeared. She was checked over thoroughly by the doctor because she was only 2.5. No physical damage had been done, but of course the mother said, yes, but will she remember this? Is this gonna? And the doctor said, no, she'll be fine. She's too young to remember. Well, obviously, as complementary therapists, we know differently.
Absolutely, yeah.
And she said, this has just joined the dots up so much. Now we know the cause.
Yep.
So to keep the story brief, I had to carry on using frankincense and rosewood on her when she came for treatment, which was every 2 weeks. We extended it to 3 if I recollect properly. And then she ended up having still to do a bath twice a week. So it was somewhere between the 3rd and the 4th month, not appointment, but month. Okay. Yep. By now she hadn't been in the hospital, no seizure. So she'd ended up, it was one of her regular checkups anyway. And they couldn't understand because her records were showing, hang on, you were last in, and we've had this whole plethora of, hospital visits and all the rest of it.
Coming
what's
in so
been going on.
consistently to nothing.
So she'd explained to them, and she said, I was a bit wary about telling them too much, but I said I'd been coming to you. And they were all ears about that because she made a point of telling them I was clinical. Yeah.
Yep.
And yet what I'm doing is very woo-woo.
But yet
As
they
far as
go,
dowsing goes. Yeah. But she left that bit out. You see, she didn't say anything about dowsing with the pendulum. Anyway, they put all the, like put electrodes to watch brain patterns and all this kind of.
Yeah.
She's completely clear. It's gone.
Amazing.
It's gone.
Wow.
So that one to me, while I was dealing with her as well, that's what really established not just my trust in my dowser, but my confidence in myself as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because to me, that was just like, I mean, I can't call it anything other than a miracle cure.
Yeah, no, like that story is just, I just feel like there's no words because there's so much into that story of, and I mean, that deep-rooted trauma and the release and the fact that she went from weekly hospital visits to not, like, there's
and no
like,
trace
that's
of
just
it.
an incredible.
No trace of it.
When you just hear the story after story, and that's just it. When I still hear people being like, oh, are they, do they actually work? And it's like, there's so many stories. And then when you bring in the subtle aromatherapy into it too, where people, right, like I use the word woo also.
Did you know we have a variety of mini courses from pregnancy, children, frankincense, organic skincare, and more? Go to www.schoolofessentria.com to see all the options. The best part is they're only $50 each. See you in a mini course.
If we want to progress with the lines of the dowsing, so how many? It's 5 years ago now, isn't it? We had, I mean, most people in the world remember it or heard of it, the Grenfell Tower Tower Fire in London. So I ended up putting a team of therapists together for that. But what I also did, I used my pendulum and I said, right, there's so much trauma going along here. We weren't just dealing with the survivors of the actual fire. We were dealing as well with the relatives of people that they'd lost in the tower, or people, because at the bottom of the tower, there was low rise, if you like, about 3-story high. They were called the walkways that people lived in. So they were seeing everything as it happened, because literally the tower was just there in front of them.
And that would be a lot of trauma for those people.
An awful lot of trauma, and the children in particular, because they'd lost friends in the fire. It was just horrendous. Absolutely. I mean, every therapist, I made them look at that tower when they got there. I said, go and look at the tower first before you can see anybody. And there was a lot of them that just stood there, bawled their eyes out and went, this is beyond my pay grade. I can't. Because to see it in real life, as opposed to seeing it on TV, completely
I couldn't even imagine.
Fish.
Absolutely.
But getting back to the dowsing side, I wanted something then that, because there was a big team effort, because we were involved as well with the psychologists, the psychiatrists, all these different people, even in the Muslim community, who were doing all the support work for these people, kids who couldn't sleep, so were waking up with nightmares, all this kind of stuff. So I was putting it all together energetically, if you like, for the dowser to pick up. It's like doing an absent healing Reiki session. But I need you, dowser, to pick up on those people, including the children. And we need a blend that we know we can hand out that's going to be absolutely safe. Doesn't matter. The only difference is how they're going to use it, whether they're a child or an adult, because of the dosage. Yeah. And he came up with this most amazing blend of 4 oils. 3 oils. We call it the Grenfell blend. And it was just amazing. I mean, we kept getting asked, by these support workers that were allocated X amount of families as well. Can we get some of those? They were literally carrying them by the pocketfuls around with them. Wow. Just to hand out to people to help them. And of course, telling them, no, that's where you need to go. The therapists are over there, So this is how we got around that one, by dowsing. I could have spent hours trying to figure out what they actually needed, because it wasn't just smoke inhalation, it was the cyanide inhalation, it was the trauma, it was just such a mixed bag of stuff. You couldn't focus just on one thing.
Yeah.
You know, and the blend, when I looked at it, when they came up, the 3 oils, and I'm going, wow. You
And
know,
that's
and
where
then I
the
looked a bit
trust
deeper
comes
again, and I'm
in.
going, I would never in a million years have put those 3 oils together. But when I look at them now, and I even look at the chemistry of them, this is exactly up, and they were all absolutely safe, even for children to use. You know, and I'm going,
So amazing.
so when COVID hit 3 years ago, did the same thing.
Nice.
You know, so we had the blend, as we called it, which meant, yes, we don't have to worry about any contraindications.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I sent a whole batch of them down to a local police station because they'd heard about it and said, could we have some please to help us? You know, yeah, of course you are. How many do you need?
So
We need
amazing.
7. Okay, here you go. They'll be in the post. Bang, send them out.
Nice.
You know,
And again, right, that's that trust of believing in the pendulum, believing in
yeah,
what it's doing. It knows, it reads the energy. The energy is there no matter what. And that trust is so important.
yeah, absolutely. And that's the most difficult. So technically speaking, when I teach it, because I was very worried when I first started teaching it online, because normally I teach it face to face, obviously. You know, I want to see you actually doing it.
Yeah.
But of course, because of lockdown and everything, I had students that needed to learn this. And I said, look, shall we get together and we'll see how it goes? At least then that's another module out the way. And we'll see how it goes. I can't promise it's going to work, but let's give it a go. And we did, and it actually worked. And I went, oh,
Right.
okay, because I was already teaching online before COVID hit anyway. I was doing a lot of my theory classes online because I have students, you know, all over the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would only have to travel, or they travel to me to do any practical training, which this normally would be part of. But now it's gone over beautifully onto doing it via video call. And of course, now it's even you guys over in the States are learning how to do it.
Yes. Well, we're Canada, but yes, we have a lot of.
Sorry, you're Canada, but
but there's a lot of North American.
Over the pond.
Yes.
Over that puddle.
Yes.
Yeah, over that puddle. So yeah, it seems to be working fine. So that
Absolutely.
then also, thanks to this little baby, also gave me the confidence. I thought, well, if that works, I wonder if I can transfer what a course I put together back in 2002 and 2003, all to do with the chakras.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's 3 huge modules, but there's 1, 2, 4, 5 different energy models, if you like. We're dealing with them. Sorted out my blends, dowsed up the blends for whatever it was within that module we need to do. And I thought, okay, let's give this a bash. Let's see if this will work online as well, because now I've got to be able to. And of course, when it comes to energy, and it's still dealing with dowsing at the end of the day, it's all to do with electromagnetic fields.
Yep.
Yeah. And one of the things energy loves traveling down is like electricity, down electrical currents and stuff. So over the years, I'd had enough experience to know you can send that energy down the screen.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I thought, okay, let's give this a go. So I ran that first chakra trilogy, not last year, but the year before.
Yeah.
The transformation in the students was just like, wow, you know, and I've done another 2 since then. And I've got a new one starting in January. But being able to transfer, and even then using the dowser while we're still in class, because during lockdowns, again, he is even now, after all these years, using technology with the dowser.
Yep.
So I'd get my clients, obviously lockdown, couldn't go and see them, but all of a sudden it was, Jane, could you help me, please? Yeah, let's have a video call. Did a video call. You know, some of them were in a really bad way. You know, so rather than just sending them the blend for their COVID, I was going, okay, focus in on all your symptoms for me. And I would just hold the dowser out onto the screen. And I said, and literally throw it at me. Just imagine, here you go, Jane, have this lot.
Oh, I love it.
And I would douse them and I'd come up with their individual blends, get it in the post. And of course, the post wasn't being affected.
No.
If anything, the postal was getting more and more busy with people sending stuff all over the place. And
Yeah, it just took a little lot. Here it slowed down. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were getting the remedies. I mean, at one stage, we weren't supposed to be out and about, but I was carrying down snippy sticks made up in my car just to go out for a drive.
Yeah.
You know, and if I did get stopped, I was going, I'm delivering these. This person needs these. I'm sticking them through the letterbox.
Yeah.
But I was locally just to get them there that day.
Yeah.
I would whiz out in my car. And if I did get stopped, which never happened, but if I had done, I could have said, no, I'm on a bit of a rescue mission, mate. I'm taking these and putting them through a letterbox. I'm not coming into contact with anybody. Don't worry.
Yeah.
You know,
I know.
So that built the confidence up of being able to say, well, if I can douse absolutely down. I mean, I was absolutely dousing people before doing a video call in some cases, just to see, you know, and if it came up and I'm going, okay, yeah, I get it. Those alls make sense. So it's just a gradual building up of what was already there, if you like. You know, but it does take practice and it takes trust. And that is the biggest thing. And like I say,
it really is.
Like, you know, from that class, just keep practicing it. Just keep practicing it. Keep looking at those soils and you will. It's like opening up a whole new room, you know, because you suddenly start seeing, oh my goodness me, there's the physical issues, but look what's underpinning it all. Because you'll say to the client, you know, emotionally and mentally, this soil is very good for dirt. And they'll go, guess what?
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Yeah. Which has compromised the immune system and the sick.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So do you have any tips or tricks when using the pendulum specifically for the oils, like a specific way to ask the questions or anything like that you would recommend?
Yes. So as you know, there is a script.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you're asking, it's almost like doing a computer program. And I'm totally technophobic. I've got no idea, but I understand, you know, the mechanisms.
Yeah.
So even because the guy used to date way back, his brother was a computer programmer and analyst. And he was explaining, because in those days it was all zeros and ones and God knows what else. And then all of a sudden it changed binary. And then it suddenly changed over to actual language with funny little symbols and stuff. And he said, so you leave out a comma, he said, and that's enough to throw the whole program off, you know. Okay. So got that basic understanding. So it's the same thing with the dowser. You've literally got to take it step by step when you ask the question. And you will have to ask a specific question or ask that question in such a way that it can only give you a yes or a no or a maybe answer. So if you happen to ask that dowser, say it's picked out, maybe you've picked out 2 oils, we'll say, right? And then you could ask, so here I've got the Manuka and the Magnolia, because that's what I've been using for my head cold. Is the Magnolia or the Manuka better for my head cold? Well, I'm going to get a maybe, because I'm asking it to say either this or that, and the dowser's going to go, no, you need to ask the Magnolia then. Is the Magnolia, you know, do I need to use the Magnolia for my head cold? In this case, it was going to say no, because actually I've been using it for the tooth problem I've been having. Okay. So the Manuka, same thing. Do I need to use this Manuka for my head cold? Yes. Do I need to use the Manuka for my tooth problem? No.
There you go.
So you need to ask those questions, you know. And the other thing you've got to remember, when you are dowsing somebody up, I see it so often, especially Certainly when you're in a classroom physical situation, oh yeah, they've picked it right, douse up the body, as we call the training body. Okay, you've got somebody in them to work on, right? So the dowser's going to say, oh, pick up, yes, just to get it turned. So the dowser's going around, yes, they've got the energy, and then to stop it spinning, they'll automatically hold the dowser.
Yes, you see
And I'm
that
going,
often.
and
then
then
they
they're going,
just wipe the energy off.
I'm going, you've just cleansed it.
Yeah.
You just wiped that person's, oh yeah. So
And it's hard to stop.
Especially if you're used to, right, stop now, and let's be nice and still to start off again.
But no,
the more you work with it, the quicker the response is with your dowser. It's really, really phenomenal how quick this dowser can start spinning on you. Once you just get on with it, it's your baby. You get on with it. You pick what I need. You know, there's one little thing which has always concerned me, is when we're dowsing for the client, and especially if you're about to do, because I think in Canada, you tend to follow more the English school, don't you, rather than the American school? You do hands-on as well, don't you?
For aromatherapy and massage?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can do either one.
So if you're trained in aren't you? Yeah, because you're more flexible in Canada, whereas in America you can't. It's a whole different ball game over there. So in America, they're all essential oil practitioners. Yeah.
Okay. I think it's switching though, because like it just depends on the school specifically.
I don't know. I don't think
I'm not sure.
It's different licensure in different states.
Yeah, because you still need to be trained. You might get your license
to practice massage in, I don't know, some American state, but you might move into a different state and they're going, no, you can't massage here. You've got to reapply and get your license to do the massage.
That's the same here.
So it is the same with you. Okay.
For massage, but like aroma massage is different, because like we offer aroma massage and you can be in Alberta and come to Ontario and it's still okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Because you're not a registered massage therapist.
The Canadians tend to follow the English aromatherapy.
Yeah.
All right. Got where that was going. Oh yes. So when you're asking, and especially if you're going ahead to do, say, a massage or a reflexology or aroma reflex, as some people like to call it, which oils do I need to use on Nikki? Yeah. For her, whatever, it's already saying, oh, I need to combine your energies as well, do I? Right? Which is a very different question to me saying, which oils does Nikki need to use at home?
Yeah, that is different. Very
different, because there's my combined energy with these oils that I'm about to give you a massage with.
Yeah. So the wording is very, very crucial.
The wording's very important.
What you're using.
Because this has been mulling around in my head quite a lot, it was proven to me actually last week. It's a bit of a spooky story, but then we're dealing with energies at the end of the day, so it is going to be a bit woo-woo. It was one of my, as I was going down, I was meant to be doing a kahuna bodywork, which is very much energetic and working with the client's energy fields rather than doing a scripted A to Z massage.
Yeah.
And as I do with something like that, especially if I know I'm going to be doing more energy type work with a client, on my way to clinic, I'll sort of be tuning in and listening to whatever. And it was one of my guides that had come in, and she's a bit of a nice bully, let's put it that way. She when she comes in, she takes over.
Nice.
And I, oh, hello, okay, all right. So having this little conflab with this lady. So I got there, and luckily my clients she's been coming to me for years, and she's quite open. I mean, she calls me her little witch.
I love it.
In the nicest possible way.
I would take that as a compliment. Absolutely.
Yeah, I know. I prefer fairy, but which will do. Anyway, I said, okay, this sort of thing's been happening on the way down. I don't want to say too much. I said, what I want to do though is do some kinesiology on you. Just straightforward yes, no answers. I said, because you don't know what I'm going to be asking, because I'll be asking them in here. I said, and we'll see what the responses are. And I'm up for it. Yeah, go for it. So,
Love
of
it.
course, knowing there's 3 that could possibly be working with me, and she happens to know all 3 of them. But anyway, so I muscle tested her. So the first 2 were the ones I knew it shouldn't have been. And both times her arms just went down. There was no, it's not that one. Nope, it's not that one. And of course, when I asked about this third one, is it Dada's energies that needs to work with Danny today? Her arm just, I could have put a ton of bricks on it. It wasn't going to move.
Yeah.
Because Danny even opened her eyes and she went, oh my God, that's a yes. What's that for? And I went, well, that's ticked one of my spooky boxes. I was right on it down. I just need to check the other bits out now, which I did, which then pointed me in the direction of when I doused her for the oils for what I need. Now, Hildegard, as she's known, was going to do, not me. I was just the tool.
The
conduit
just
for it.
And yeah.
I know. And I made sure when I was asking, okay, Dowser, can you pick out the oils that Hilda needs to use with Danny? Because I knew this was it's never happened. Well, for a long time, it's not happened this strong for me.
Yeah.
But there again, we've had 3 years of bloody lockdowns and messing about. So a lot of catching up to do. So the Dowser picked out these 3 oils. And I'm going, okay. All right. And like Danny said, we'll just go with it. And I went, yeah, because overall it sort of makes sense, but I'm not getting why this one's your primary oil. Yeah. So very often I'll say the first oil out of your box is your primary oil. Yeah. And that's the one that's dealing with the here and the now and what really needs to be dealt with more immediately. Yeah. Right. So it could be a more what we call physical oil rather than a mental or emotional one. All right. Mm-hmm. The next oil that comes out is then what I call the bridging oil. Okay. All right. So it's bridging you between what is going on now with how you will feel or want to feel.
I like the way that you word that.
Yeah. So the third oil that comes in is the one that comes in from behind and brings how you want to feel into the now. Okay. Yeah. So again, it could still be a physical oil, but you can almost straight away say, and that's where we're going to be at next time. Yep. So you've got this is the way you have that dealing with here and now. This is the bridging one, which still deals with the issues. Yeah. And this is where we're aiming for.
Yeah. We always say it's which one is the star?
Within 24, 48 hours, that client's going to turn around and say, yeah, I feel definitely more like that third oil now. That personality of that oil, we're going, great, we've got the breakthrough, move on to the next batch. Yeah. And very often you'll see either the bridging or the third oil becoming the primary or the second oil. They sort of move up and another one comes in. Yeah. Which keeps, I call it an oil change.
No, I like it. I always say the supporting, like who's the star of the blend, and then the other ones are just the supporting actors to help kind of raise it up and be there. And then, but it can also shift, as you're going, in the next time that could change. Yeah. So no, absolutely.
Yeah. So I was very, very careful picking, because it wasn't me. I was doing the physical work per se, but I certainly wasn't going to be the one doing all this. Yeah. And it was just I just got into the reflex and just let Hilda do a thing, basically. Yeah. With the oils.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And again, it's trusting the dowser. Yeah. And then the other thing I often find a lot of people forget is to thank their dowser. Like just like when you're starting and ending, like say hi and say thank you and please. And have some nice manners with your dowser, and it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it becomes your confidant. It becomes an extent. I mean, at the end of the day, there's a very, very famous, well, he's a bit of a British actor, come comedian, what have you, but one of these super duper clever chaps called Michael Benting. You won't have heard of him over there, but Brits will certainly know of him. Well, certainly the older Brits. And he wrote quite a few books, and one of them was called Lord of the Levels, which
Okay.
is more of a novel, but it was a murder mystery thing, but it was all based on ley lines and dowsing.
Oh, nice.
But in his other book, he's got another one called Doors of the Mind. And
Mhm.
his father, during Victorian times, used to go around and distribute, you know, table tipping and all that kind of stuff. So in this book, it's all Michael Benting's experiences going around as a young man with his dad, and then after the war and getting into dowsing. And he's talking about dowsing. And he was explaining at the end of the day, even as Einstein says, all the answers are out there. They're out there. They're out there in the ether.
They
And
are.
all dowser is, it's no different in effect to somebody reading the tea leaves or using tarot cards or doing the psychometry. That was the thing I wanted to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About the lady doing the touch and tell, as she called it, the psychometry,
Yep.
isn't it? They hold something and tell you the history of who wore
Yep.
that wedding ring or wherever.
Yeah.
They're all tools
They are.
to switch off your analytical brain to allow your subconscious, to come
We need
through.
to come back.
We need to come back to here. Well,
Yeah, we do.
third eye stories like this. We're not unicorns.
Yeah. Well, but it's reconnecting the mind energy, the energy aspect of, and so many people have lost that energy connection.
It's the instinct.
It is.
It's the instinct.
Absolutely.
You know, and if you go back to primitive man, you know, his sense of smell was his number one sense.
Yep.
Number one.
Oh,
you know,
yeah, it was
he
survival.
would smell the fire or the wild animal stalking him before he would hear him or see him. He would, like an animal, he would literally smell the change in the weather. He would smell if there was a particular animal around or a particular plant that I can smell those blackberries that are over there.
Yeah. Which is why aroma is so important.
Yeah.
It is. It's
and
such a
over
crucial
millennia, of course, we rely more what we call our sense of taste. And I'm going, where do you think your sense of taste comes from? It comes from your sense of smell.
Absolutely.
You know, why do you think there are certain smells you don't like? I'm also at the school, I'm afraid, where a lot of aromatherapists, the way they work is you've got to make the blend pleasing, you know, to the client and all the rest of it. It's got to be a nice aroma. Yeah, I get that. Yes, everybody likes a nice smell. But I'm sure you found it as well. Sometimes these dowsers will pick out these oils, you put them together and you're going, okay, not the best of smells, but we'll go with it. You know,
see, there's very few oils I don't like. Yeah, see, and honestly, there's only one off the top of my head, aroma, that I don't like, which is patchouli, which you had mentioned right at the beginning.
Oh,
but
it's
that's
funny.
honestly the only one. You can put tea tree, and I heard someone at one point, they were talking about how much they dislike the smell of ginger. I'm like, what's wrong with ginger? I love ginger essential oil and the smell.
I always say, if you get a reaction where a client literally recoils, right?
Yeah.
There's a challenge going on there.
Yes.
Because to me, it's like that. They might not know can't stand that smell. What is it? Take it away from me. And I clock that oil because I'm going, there's a challenge here somewhere. Yeah. It's reminding you of something that you'd rather not address. And when you start explaining it to them and then they start working. I mean, a classic example, when I was writing up about Xanthosylum, and I smelt this oil, and I'm going, what the heck? It was literally the only oil that's ever made me go, like I'm going to gag.
Really?
It literally hit my gag reflex.
Oh my goodness.
And I thought, I'm going to do a write-up on this. And of course, my students were laughing at me, thinking, ha ha, Jane's got a challenge oil. You know, how's she going to work on this one then? You know, and I'm going, oh. And I mean, it literally was getting my gag reflex going.
Wow.
And it took me ages. It took me ages to work with it for me to take me back to, okay, what is it you're reminding? And by the time I'd finished with it, it started getting that. Because anybody else, I could hold it to my clients and they're all going, that's gorgeous. Can't you smell the fruit in it? And I'm going, no, I cannot smell fruit in that whatsoever.
The individualness, it's so amazing.
Yeah,
it really is.
But again, you see, it's that dowser. It'll throw up oils that can be a challenge.
Yeah, It's, and I know,
And there's a
because I
reason
used to be
for
that way
it.
for geranium. Like I could never do geranium until my last
No, I don't
pregnancy. Now
particularly
it's
like
when I
it.
love, just the postpartum and pregnancies need for me. I craved it. I craved it so much. And I used to dislike it to almost like the same amount as patchouli. You'd open the bottle and I'm like, get it away from me. Get it away from me. I have zero interest in that aroma.
You
So
see,
that
there's
one's
an
come
interesting
around.
one about rose with me, because when I was training 30 years ago, or just over 30, you know, everybody rave about rose, how beautiful it is. And I'm going, yeah, it's lovely, but it's not for me right now. Now, you know,
Mhm.
like a lot of people will say, oh, lavender, they used to say, lavender is such an old lady's oil.
Okay, yep. Yeah.
Yeah, certainly here in Britain, because your grandmother used to get Yardley's lavender products every Christmas. All right. But to me, when I smelt rose, even when I was, what was I then? Late 20s, early 30s, and I'm going, that's not for me, right? I like it, but it's not for me right now. And
Yep.
it's funny, as soon as I started going perimenopausal and certainly postmenopausal, yeah, and it's like, oh
Now
my
you
God,
want it.
this oil is divine. I really,
Interesting.
really appreciate it now. And there's
Yeah.
absolutely nothing wrong in, obviously, I love that one. You know, I mean, there's a couple of oils I'm going, oh, they smell so good, I could eat them, but we don't do that, obviously. But there are some oils that do that to you. But they're what I call then your happy place oils.
Yep.
They're your reminders. You've already been here.
Yep.
You've already been in this wonderful place. And I'm just here to remind you how good life can be with these
No, I
particular
love it.
oils. They're your happy place oils.
Yep.
And they have their place absolutely as well, because you would get to a point, even with a client, where something's happened and you can look up through their history and see what oils have been coming up. And you can see that what you don't even have to get your downs out almost. It's like this one, this one, this one. These make up your happy place oils.
Yep.
Would you like me to make this up in an atomizer for you? So you've always got it and you can just spray it on like a perfume if you want to and stuff like that. You know, so it doesn't need you to douse for it and get the big guns out, you know, a specific stuff. They've got something they could use, or in a roller ball, they could just put on and just go, happy place.
Right. Exactly.
You know, because it's not a massive stress situation. It's not massive, it's just something that's, oh, juggling your nerves a bit. And I just need something to take the edge off. These are the happy place oils. Rub a bit of that on. That's good.
Yeah. It doesn't need to be a big thing. Yep.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
So many I come across an aromatherapist saying, oh my God, no, you never give a plant like this. You do. Oh, yes, you do. Because it's part of the healing process. And in
Absolutely.
especially if your dowsers picked out a stinky pooey oil to the clients, when you put the blend together, very often they can't smell that stinky pooey oil.
Well, it'll blend with the other aromas, right? So you don't notice it to the same extent, because when patchouli can be in a blend, and I don't mind it as much. I can smell it still, but I don't mind it. It's when,
with patchouli then, don't you? Find out why.
I know. It's been years that I'm like, I really need to see why, but I don't.
Yeah. Because
I'm
usually
not
that's
there
Vetiver, isn't it? In the aromatherapy world,
Oh,
I love it.
that's Vetiver's my
always
number
loved
one.
it.
If there's one where you say like you can only pick one oil to bring with you,
That would be my other
all
one.
time, Vetiver's mine. I have loved it from the first day I've smelt it, and it is. But I'm a ground earthy girl, so give me something that smells like I'm rolling in dirt, and I love it. And people
I mean,
they
the
look at me
mantra
like, "Oh,
for
that's
me at the
strong."
moment is only because I've got this blooming head cold and a bit of a sore throat, and not sore throat, sore tooth, and it's sort of, that's a good all rounder. If I was stuck, you know, and I had to just take one, even though the Dowsing's not picked it out for me, you know, but if I had to just pick one, that's one. But if I, you know, Vetiver is definitely my top 10. Absolutely. And it's wild version, the Ruckus.
Mm-hmm.
Ruckus is just something else again. It's got the power of the Vetiver, but oh my gosh, does it go up there first?
Amazing.
Which is the wild
So
version.
I mean, we can keep talking for hours and hours and hours, but noticing the time, do you have any last parting words for our listeners before we tune off?
In what respect?
Just anything in general about dowsing, aromatherapy, and absolutely anything that comes to your mind.
In any situation, try and find the way to love it better.
I love that. I love that. Those are great words. Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
if people want to get in touch with you, learn more about you, learn more about any of your courses, anything like that, where can people find you?
I'm a total technophobe, so you're only going to find me on Facebook.
Okay.
I can't be doing with all these Instagrams and TikToks, and that's not me.
Yep.
So I'm on Facebook. Just look up Jane Lawson. The business is Natural Approach School and Therapy, so you'll find the business page on there as well. But if you put in naturalapproach.biz, that's my website.
Okay, awesome. And we'll have that in the show notes below also, for your website and the Facebook. And that's Natural Approach is the name of your business. So if people even just Google it, I'm sure they'll find it. But as I said, we'll have that in the show notes below too.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
So thank you so much for coming on the show today, sharing all your stories. It's really the past stories that have people going, okay, like it just helps confirm that it's so real and amazing and powerful. And you can do so much with it. So thank you for sharing so many of those stories and your experience and everything that goes with it. We are delighted that you were able to join us today. And thank you to all the listeners for tuning in to Vetiver Vibes, the Essential Oil Scoop. We'll see you next time. Bye.
This episode was brought to you by Essentria, a leading online aromatherapy school. You can join the free Introduction to Essential Oil course at www.schoolofessentria.com.
If you love this episode or you got a lot of value out of it, please make sure you share it with someone in your community who you think will enjoy it too. If you haven't already subscribed or reviewed the show yet, please go over to your preferred streaming platform and hit subscribe, then leave a review. This is the best way to help support us, and we appreciate it. Email us with a screenshot of your review, and you will be entered into our monthly draw for a free mini course.
This podcast is for information purposes only. We are certified clinical aromatherapists and holistic health professionals. If you have a medication concern, please refer to your health team. Everyone's health is unique to themselves, so the topics and suggestions stated may or may not apply to you directly.